the Daniel Town Planning Commission meeting. There's no public here.
Yeah. So there
Two
won't be
comment.
any
There's
public
no
comment.
public hearing.
Hi.
Yeah, she might have a comment.
There's no public here.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye.
Fine.
It's still early, she's on her best behavior still.
Well, if we get out of here real soon, they'll both be on their best behavior.
Okay, that takes us item 2, home occupation. You guys all have the code sent out to you. The council took a hit at it, and you have their draft of changes that are made to the code that we have now. So they sent it to us to look at and see if we want to make any changes to send back to them to incorporate in this code, and then we'll have a public hearing, which we'll do a combined. If that's what the planning commission wants to do, we can do a separate one if you want, but to bring the folks out twice it's hard to get them out once.
Oh, we love to combine because I don't have to keep notes.
So we need some good public clamor on this one.
Yeah, clamor. Yeah, people.
We can do it twice.
Get some
Give
trumps
people
up.
2 chances to come.
Yeah?
No, once is enough.
Did everybody have a chance to review it?
Not the new version, but the old version.
Okay. You can see on the one that I passed out, the one, it's red line, that crosses through what they was gonna take out. And what they've,
That didn't come through on mine.
Oh, this is the one, I printed this one out earlier.
Okay.
Oh, I don't
Well, this is the one I printed. and it had
Well,
no
you
red
printed
lines.
one out, and
Oh,
then
well,
he
you'll
has
have to
each
take
one.
this
Oh,
one.
okay.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
do you,
We need another map too, give me that as
This
long
one
as
she's
you've
got
got
it.
it. Well, the one I, okay.
Let's see what she did. Yeah, no, see, this is the one I had. That was my question about question mark. Oh. So they don't want to say that.
hearing none, all in favor? Oh,
I say you was there, so it was.
That was approval adjourned, right?
They made a couple changes after I left, but I didn't have any issues with that.
sorry. Try Kathy, Joe.
Thank you very much. I almost went for it. By the way, I warned everybody that they won't get a cattle prod if they were still on task. On task. No wandering off the subject.
It's good, because I cut hay.
Took this out.
I had 5 trips around the field and I got it finished.
I don't know.
They didn't want to specify, they just wanted to leave it open.
What's that?
This,
one you
on the
working
first one, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit behind because the one I printed off didn't have
Okay,
these lines through it. So they decided to take out the part about by reason of color, design, materials, just leaving that open with the idea that then they're not limiting themselves on what they're enforcing.
no, by taking those things out that we wouldn't enforce. Color, we have no intention of enforcing a color in the town boundaries.
Or materials or construction or lighting. We're just gonna allow the lighting code to
Well,
deal with it?
our lighting code takes care of
Okay, so
the
lighting code
night
will deal with
sky.
that.
Yeah. Some of those things, the difference is already covered within our building
Within
permit.
code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in history on this, didn't the town council hold a special session to toss this around, put it together?
Yes,
This is the result of that.
this is the result of the
Okay.
special session.
Okay.
And this is only for businesses inside a home, not for any of the businesses that are appearing in town outside the home.
That's correct. This
Is
is
there a separate one for businesses that
for
are appearing?
commercial?
Well, okay, we'll use that word, commercial and RA5.
No, not in RA5.
Okay, so they just put this back.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. So this is supposed to take care of all the businesses,
This is,
commercial and inside the home in Daniel as of today.
anything that would be a home occupation. If we have commercial businesses that are operating as a commercial outside of this document, then those ones are in violation.
So I guess I don't understand who has the semis along 3,000. Are those not commercial businesses?
No,
Okay,
because, well, and here's the difference.
I don't understand the difference.
Yeah.
We couldn't either.
Yeah, and so the difference is that they come home, they park their diesel there, they get up in the morning, they drive away.
All four of them?
Diesel's coming and going, all day long,
Okay,
we don't have. So they're driving them home, they're parking them, they're not operating a commercial operation out of there, that's
Alright.
the difference,
okay. Thank you for
as I
clarification.
understand it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, whatever, what you said, it sounds good.
So they decided they didn't want a description of the property used for home occupation because it's just supposed to be the home? Is that the
The
thought behind that?
description, let's see, where we at?
Number 4,
Yeah.
Oh,
Number 4,
Yeah.
82503-4.
yes.
Okay, makes sense.
Because if you look down to number 6, the site plan covers that already.
Got it. Nice touch.
It was a bit redundant, I thought.
Yes,
Okay.
we'll shorten it up, maybe somebody will read it.
No.
Okay, so we're not asking them to identify the neighbors. Okay.
Yeah, and really, that was in there, and we talked about that in the council. That is actually there for a conditional use,
Right.
and that's when we sent notice to the people 500 feet around. As you remember, when we had the dog kennel, we've had a couple of conditional uses, that's when that kicks in.
So they chose restrict rather than impact?
Yes,
Is that because impact's too hard to assess?
it's too hard to define.
Okay.
Any extra car on the road impacts. it,
Impacts,
but doesn't
exactly.
restrict it.
Yeah.
I kind of felt number 7 wasn't that important, because isn't it supposed to be the people that are living there?
Number 7, the
Underneath.
responsible person.
Yes.
Well, the reason they need to provide that is so if we do have a complaint, we have somebody to get a hold of.
That's not the owner or the renter?
It would be, well, no, it's the person that has the license for the home occupation.
And so they should be living in the home.
But they should be
Right.
living there.
Yes,
Yeah.
I thought that was a little odd.
But it doesn't say anywhere that this person is required to live in the home where the occupation is.
it actually does.
Where does it?
I thought it did.
And the residing family, that would be down on 82506B.
B. Entirely is carried on in the dwelling only by members of the residing family.
But
And
still,
so that came, what brought that up is we had, down at the mushroom farm, his brother came in for the license.
Okay.
And so he
Well,
Oh, and he was a family member,
he is a family
but he
member,
doesn't live there.
but he doesn't live there.
Understood. Okay.
So,
Fine. Makes sense.
can I say mushroom farm? Okay.
residing.
Gary's looking at me like, oh, you blew it.
no. I just looking to see who came in.
Oh. I'm having a hard time with political correctness this week.
Yeah, that was me last week, but anyway.
So this, English is a squirrely language, but if you read that, it just means that it has to be conducted within the home by the people living there.
Right.
It doesn't say the people who applied for the
And
license.
number 7
or
is
the
saying you
people
need the
home.
name, address, and phone number of the person requesting the license. So I think you need that.
It just says responsible person. So it's possible that somebody could put another family in their home to run the home occupation and not live there themselves. Do we care about that?
Yeah, probably, but.
So there was a question by that number B that we was talking about. That conducted entirely within the residential dwelling.
Right.
And so the question came up, but what about storage?
Yeah, and it says right here that they can't use exterior storage.
Right.
I don't know why we care.
Oh, I do.
Okay, why?
I can show you examples,
Okay. So,
but anyway.
well, I'm curious about that.
Well, and John Blotter pointed out, well, if they can't use those, you want them to stack it out in the yard? You don't want it in a building?
Rather have it in a building than out in the yard.
Okay, well, that was what John was saying also, so that's why it's highlighted as a question.
Well, and if
mark.
it's a home occupation conducted entirely within the residential dwelling, I'm surprised they didn't put something in there that it's occupied by the applicant or the person holding the business license, because that doesn't say that anywhere in here. That the person with the business license has to be the one operating the business.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And she made a good
And
point.
it implies.
I can get a
to be,
business
but-
license, I can set up a business in my home, And then I can leave and let my kids run it
Yes, you can.
Yep, according to our code.
Yes.
and not even live in the home.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If
we're
you're
fine
that
with
brave.
With my kids, hell no.
that. Is growing weed a home occupation?
No, so it's a hypothetical question.
In my case, yes.
So in this case, they added, so the home occupation, they want to leave C in, that it does not involve the use of any accessory building or yard space for storage.
So
Well, there
here's
you
my
go, you can't
example
leave them
from
in
the
the yard.
meeting. If I want to run a business and not have to buy commercial property and everything, the first thing I do is I build a big ag building, and then I move the business into my residential neighborhood and use the ag building that I didn't have to get a building permit for, or meet any requirements to run the business from.
Right.
So
Which
is that
is
what we want to
irritating.
have happen or not?
I'd say no.
So we don't want it using excess, because for home occupation, we're looking at, for things like hair salons, or say, running a tax accountant,
Mhm.
building,
Or
business out
maybe
of
you're
your
a
home,
JetBlue reservation agent.
and you're just online.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're running a jewelry store out of your basement,
Mm-hmm.
online.
What about somebody like a painter?
Yeah, and I brought up my mixer as an example.
Okay,
There's my mixer, I take it home.
okay.
Where are we gonna put that? Yeah, out in
So
the
if you
yard.
put it in the shed, are you then non-compliant?
Right.
And so we're
So-
thinking it's
so-
better off in the shed.
That's what they were thinking, that they didn't want to see it out in my yard.
I personally think that it's better to have auxiliary buildings for, not an enormous amount of it, but, you know, then, when you say you can't do anything out in the yard, well, that eliminates most, not most, but some of what people do. And I'm thinking of a small guy, you know, he's got himself and 2 or 3 employees that go out and do painting. And, you know, he's got, I don't know, it just seems to me like this is really restrictive when we say that.
Well, it is, but it's residential zone too.
That's true. So he's running a
So do
business
we
and
want to have a
residential.
commercial and a residential zone, or do we just want to have a residential zone and mix everything up?
Oh,
So,
make
yeah.
his wife let him put it in the living room. Isn't that what your wife lets you put yours? It's in the living room?
Actually, that's what the reason I actually moved to Daniel, is I was getting complained on because I have mixers from my masonry company.
And that's kind of the point. I don't
So-
see this as the same residential zone as we have in,
Heber City.
or Upper
Red
Olympus
Lodges.
Cove, or Park City, or, you know, I think we've got a lot of space out here. I think that we can,
I can tell you because it was me, it ended up on the corner of my lawn as a flower garden.
There you go.
And looking right at the complainer. And finally, somebody stopped by with it, hey, it's $500 for that mixer? Like, the neighbor sent you, didn't they? I said, what would happen if I gave you $500 for that? I said, I'd tell you to get your mixer off my lawn.
There you go.
Hand over the
It
cash.
better be cash.
So if we're going to allow outside storage of buildings, I'd like to put a requirement in that the storage needs to be closer to their house than the neighbor's houses. Because I see it where they put it clear one end of the property, which is closer to all the neighbors than it is to their house.
Yeah, it impacts the neighbors more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, run their equipment under the neighbor's
Can
bedroom.
that building be an ag building?
No.
Be a properly permitted building.
aren't we kind of dancing around the issue of what is actually a nuisance? You know,
Well-
if people can comply with things and be sensitive to their neighbors and stay without causing a nuisance, do we really need to tell them they can't do that? And on the other hand, when people actually are a nuisance and they won't comply, do we really need to support them in that?
Well, let me give you an example. Last week, for 3 nights, we had asphalt, paving rotomill coming into the backyard all night long, because that's when the rotomill. So the truck's backing up, the door's slamming shut on the back, and the comment is, well, I can save money by doing this. And the question, and a bunch of other comments, but the question is if that was a commercial zone, that wouldn't be allowed. But since they're doing it in the residential zone, there's no code that covers activities overnight like we do in the commercial zone. So it's actually easier to get away with stuff in the residential zone than the commercial zone.
Isn't there such a thing as disturbing the peace in a
Nope, you don't
Not
have a good
really.
nuisance code. Here's one thing that I would see on this, is kind of what Ryan pointed out, is I don't think we want it to say ag buildings. I think it ought to be whatever in our code is an exterior building, an equipment shed that's not an ag building.
Well, it says it does not involve the
No,
use
it's-
of any accessory ag building.
Okay,
Accessory
so
building, ag
accessory is
buildings
not
or
ag
yard
buildings or yard
space.
space. Okay, so that's good then. I was getting my underlines and my crosses out.
Does
So-
an ag building have power in it?
It can,
And,
it can have plumbing.
Plumbing.
Not very many of them do, but there are a few. That were permitted as ag buildings that have electrical and plumbing.
So if they have electrical and plumbing in them, we're really trying to say that we don't want you to use an ag building
a business.
for
Well,
business.
The difference is ag building, you don't have to get a building permit, so it doesn't have to comply, and it typically isn't taxed. So they don't have to pay property tax, and they don't have to get a building permit. It's a pretty good deal if you're gonna put a business in.
So if I put an ag building in the back of my house, I can't put it next to the neighbor's fence. I wanna
If you
shear
put,
my sheep, I wanna clean my wool, I wanna spin my wool, I wanna knit my wool out there in this ag building, so I can have plumbing and power, and a little office out there. And my main business is in my home, where I sell my products out of my home, and I'm good to go, right?
as long
But
as,
yet, my machinery is making noise all night long. You know, I've got my radio blaring all night long.
And your sheep are all night long.
Yeah, my sheep are screaming and hollering at me.
but you're 100 foot away.
Yeah,
from
you've
your
had to meet
neighbor.
setbacks.
If
because
you have
of-
animals in your ag building, you can't be next to the neighbor's house.
Yeah,
That's funny. My neighbors have animals right next to my fence.
Well, your animals can be there, you just can't have an ag building with animals in it.
And what do you consider an ag building?
Whether
Anything
it's
that
been
has to
permitted
do
as
with.
an agricultural
Yeah.
building.
Oh, they've got
So your
Qualified.
sheep farm, it would be considered an ag,
ag building.
because it is,
so you couldn't use it for your
Agricultural.
building, for your business.
Don't
Unless
we
you
have
permit it
a
different.
noise ordinance that after 10 o'clock, all activities?
So,
Maybe that's where we ought to go with this. It seems like the
But now we're gonna, but if you do that, you screw up Gary when this meeting goes till 9:30 and he has to mow
But-
until
yeah,
11.
right now, the code says agriculture is okay,
Yeah,
but I hear that argument,
Oh,
I've heard that one too. Well, you bale hay at night, and I'm like, I've never baled past midnight.
Guy
And you
across
only
the-
so if you go to 10 o'clock, if you
Two,
do
three
set the
times a
noise
year.
after 10, does that screw up the agriculture?
The guy out across
I
the
should
street
bail
out
later,
back
but-
from me does it at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I
There's a
saw
lot,
it
yes.
at 8 o'clock.
That's the
Yeah.
best time to do it, but
it is.
So Ryan,
Some of
if
us have to go
it's
back to work.
baling hay at 2 in the morning, that doesn't keep people awake?
Well, I'm just
Doesn't
asking,
keep you
is it?
awake.
The noise coming from doing that?
Everybody but the guy running the tractor.
Excuse me, guys,
That's
is
why
that
there's
not
all
why we
that.
live in Daniels,
I was
in
gonna
a
say,
rural
exactly.
area?
We're,
I mean, that's just part of summertime, listening to the
Well,
balers run all night long.
if you read the code,
Agriculture is.
agricultural activities are allowed, and it talks about development and new houses coming in, being told about it, and should be aware of it, so.
But there has been talk, even within this town, that ag is a business.
It
And
absolutely is.
It's major
Yes,
business.
it is,
But
so,
it's,
but my comment,
And we look the other way on it.
when I
That's
heard
'cause
that
we
is,
all
what
eat.
would you rather have? Me baling like 3 times a year, or 86 houses in your backyard? It's your choice.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
this week, I had a guy lean over the fence, the field I was cutting, and says, "What are you growing over here, dandelions?" I said, "Well, the owner's passed away now, so the place is gonna be for sale. You're gonna miss these dandelions."
yeah.
Especially when they start digging to build a house.
David thought about that. Maybe I'd like those dandelions.
At least they're quiet.
I would just throw in, you know, agriculture has been exempted otherwise, and that would, I don't really have an opinion, I'm just throwing grenades for discussion.
No, it's
No,
good
but
that
I'm
we, it's
saying-
good that we do discuss, because, you know, if we say, well, it's residential area, you can't do this, you can't do this, and you can't do this, well, then really, can you bale hay at 2 in the morning in a residential area?
But the difference is it's specifically allowed in the code right now. If you change that, then you're gonna have everybody with an argument to subdivide into small lots, because you've taken away the agricultural thing, and the town's gone at that point. Might as well just annex to Heber.
And if that's what it is, then we really truly would be residential and not agricultural, not business.
We
not-
wouldn't like it.
I think in our general plan, the main statement says that we're really an agricultural community. And and that's what we're trying to hold on to.
Well, I think state code, state, you
State,
know, agriculture is exempted from a lot of things.
it is,
Under
certain-
state law.
pretty
if they
soon-
meet certain
pretty
requirements.
soon it'll be exempt from water.
I don't know, Eric, it just seems to me like that a lot of this stuff ought to be addressed under nuisance rather than try to micromanage somebody's business.
Well, nuisance is micromanaging them, because someone has to decide it's a nuisance and then they're doing
Then we have
it
to
right
hire
after
a
another.
cop.
So what we need to do is have the code say what's allowed and what's not allowed and be clear. And this is our chance to say what should it be.
Well, I'm thinking if we're looking at home occupation, it's something that should be, as we've said, it needs to be within the home. So, I mean, if your painting business can run out of your garage, then you are compliant. Otherwise, you need to find a different form of,
But Jay, under this code right here,
uh-huh,
it's not if I've got an apprentice with me.
well, no, yeah, you're right.
Well, maybe the apprentice takes his truck home and you're fine.
Yeah, your business has to be carried on in the dwelling by members of the residing family.
Because
So,
that would be the office portion of the business that happens in the home and the painting happens out wherever it happens.
there you go, that's the other thing.
Except the apprentice can't come.
The apprentice can't come to the
To
property.
the property.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Well, they can't paint on the property.
No, he can't. He's not
No.
supposed to be able to come and meet and get in trucks and go.
No, but he could take his truck home.
Yeah, he could take his truck
Conducted
home.
entirely within the residential dwelling. Okay.
But I have a question, like, people have the right to, I mean, what, your guys that was doing the pavement, I don't think that was their company. I think they're doing their yard, ain't they?
Now they're doing it so that they can park all their equipment out in the back.
But they're still doing their yard.
Well, they're covering their yard so they can put their business equipment there, yes. But I'm just saying, 2 in the morning is a little unreasonable.
And that's the issue right there. That's what I think is the issue, 2 in the morning. It's not whether it's somebody using their property in a certain way or not, it's what they're doing with their property. And if they're causing an issue in the neighborhood, we ought to have some sort of enforcement for disturbing the peace. And if we don't have that in our code, maybe that's what we ought to be looking at. I have another question off on a tangent too. What about these businesses that we have in Daniels that are animal care businesses that do have auxiliary buildings?
That are in a conditional use?
I don't know how it happens. That's my question is, well, how do, and if we allow that in certain instances, and we get somebody that's really intent on it, aren't they gonna haul us off to court and say, well, you let them do it over there, I wanna do it here, you tell me I can't, but you've allowed them to do it?
Which one, Tom? Which specific? You're talking dog kennels, are you talking horse boarding, are you talking?
For example.
All of it.
For example.
Dog kennels are all over the place, Jay.
Yeah,
But for example, Lee Skinner's dog kennel,
I'm-
conditional use, he was in here for several meetings to get approval,
yeah.
and anyone else can do the same thing. And then there are,
So is that a home business, a
No.
home occupation?
It is not, it's
No.
a conditional use. Conditional use runs with the land.
So is that a commercial business, a dog kennel?
No, it's a conditional use that's allowed in RA5 zone.
So he doesn't have to be on a commercial lot. He doesn't have to be zoned commercial to run that business.
So you'll have the principal uses in RA5, and then you'll have what is called conditional uses. These businesses have been deemed to have more of an impact than the principal permitted uses in RA5 zone. So with a conditional use, you can go in and mitigate those issues. And that's where that conditional use comes in, that there's a possibility that that facility may cause a disturbance or some other issue in RA zone.
And so they have to apply.
So they have to apply for a conditional use.
And meet this town's requirements.
Right.
So we can say, yeah, this is, you could do this, but you can't do this.
So-
So
You can't have
so you have
dogs
the
yapping all night long.
permitted ones that we say are allowed within the zone.
Right.
But the conditional use ones are maybe have a slight more impact or a different curve at least, have been identified by prior commissions. And
So are all of these comprehensive of what anybody may ever want to do with their property?
no,
How does somebody deal with that?
then what you do is you come and apply to add a use to the code.
And
Those
we
are,
go through the process.
those are accepted in July. that right? July, yeah, and then they're acted upon in August by the council.
So if I wanted to open a dog kennel business, I would need a business license to do that, correct?
Yes.
And an adequate facility.
And let's suppose that I've got the ability to build an adequate facility.
I think it is on 3,000.
Then I come and I get a conditional use, and I say, this is what I'm gonna do, and I apply for that, and then I'm granted a business license.
Yes.
Okay?
Actually,
And that's different than a home occupation.
yes,
But I see them every day. I hear them.
because a conditional use runs with the land.
I don't understand that.
What that means is if, in the instance of a conditional use, let's say the dog kennel, they moved out, the conditional use is still there, can be purchased and continued with the land. It
Okay.
doesn't move. If you decide to take your kennel and move four doors down, that doesn't work. Your conditional use stays with the land.
And if I don't have a dog kennel,
This one.
how do I mean, is that something that's, can be granted to be with the land at that point from then on? Or if there's not one there to begin with the land, how do you get one?
That's your conditional use. You'll apply for that before you build it. That was before the Skinners ever built that building, they came and applied for a conditional use.
I'm not familiar with the Skinners or their building, I'm just
They're on
talking
Daniel Road.
in general terms.
Right, I'm just using that as an example because that one came through the process.
That's one that went through the process correctly.
How about if I was a plumber or a painter, and I went out to job location, but everything that I had, all my tools and everything were here at my home? Is that one that would ever be granted?
As a conditional use?
A conditional use or home occupation? How would I do that if I were?
Well, I don't think that's on this list, is it, for conditional use?
I'm not seeing it, that's why I say it was.
Yeah, that hasn't been identified, so if you wanted to go under a conditional use for that, then you would apply to have that added under this number, we'd add a number to it, and it would just show up in the next column.
We have plumbers in Daniels that are doing just exactly that.
We do.
Is that a violation then?
As long as it's a guy running the house, I mean, he's bringing his trucks home, they're parking them, is all of his plumbing stuff at the house? Is it?
Is that something that we have in our,
Well, he's not breaking
As long as
any
he doesn't
rules.
have employees coming to pick up stuff.
Yeah, he can take his tools home, his trucks home.
Yeah, so that's not even a home
Well,
occupation,
his truck
that's
home.
I live here.
okay,
No, he can take his truck home,
Yeah, yeah,
His
or
truck.
trucks.
Not trucks, according to the code.
unless he rides his bike.
So if him and his son have two trucks, they can both ride
It
their
says
truck.
right here, one vehicle.
Again, this code, this is for a home occupation permit.
Which is different.
So if.
That is not.
If you're going to, and I use a flower as an example, if you're going to open a florist shop in your home, you're allowed a delivery truck, one,
One delivery truck.
right,
And
coming,
no outside doors.
coming and going all day long. That's a different animal when they take their truck home at night with their tools in it, they get up in the morning, they leave. The truck is not coming and going all day long. The impact is significantly less.
all right, actually, you're, I'm sure, familiar with several of the plumbers that we have.
Good example.
Yes,
They have trucks and trailers and they operate out of their house. Do those plumbers, and I don't know their names, but I'm sure you would, do they have home occupations or do they have conditional use?
they do not have conditional use.
They don't?
Some of them have a home occupation, some do not.
So a truck and a trailer is a violation on the home occupation, then, isn't it?
Trailer's not a vehicle.
It is too. You have to license and register it.
Hmm.
You absolutely
And in
do.
many cases, it's a great big sign that violates the sign.
Although I violate the sign, that's true. That's true.
See, it's a real slippery surface here.
Absolutely it is.
That's why we're here.
And see, when the council first brought it up, that's what I said. I said, I think we should spend our resources going after the people that aren't licensed versus the ones that are licensed and may be in little violation.
Well, I'll dump out one more can of worms, okay?
Sure.
Let's suppose you have a construction business with large excavation equipment, and you do have a business that's in the commercial zone, but all that equipment ends up at your own house anyway.
And we have that.
Just dump the can of worms out.
Well, and I can tell you one, well, I can tell you at least two of those have been to court. And they claim that that's an act, we're moving dirt.
Okay, but here's the difference, because I've heard the same thing. If the equipment belongs to them personally, park it there. If it belongs to the business, then they're in violation. Doesn't matter whether it's ag or whether, I mean, it could be used for ag, but,
That's a pretty tough hair to split.
it is, but,
And the judge has been doing it, so.
yeah.
So back to C. We talked around that one, so are we fine with that? Saying that, for this point, leave home occupations within the home. So we're not looking for somebody to build a compound to operate their home occupation.
Well, and that's what we need, I mean, that's what we're
That's
talking
what-
about here.
Yeah, so is that what we're gonna go with? When we've talked
What I'm
around
saying, I
this.
see, for example, trucking companies are allowed as a conditional use in the industrial zone, yet we have them running out of the residential zone. You just
Running,
have to wonder.
running or parking for the night? So that,
The
there's.
one that was next
Well,
to
that guy that
me,
lives there doesn't
Um,
drive 3 trucks by
right.
himself.
the one that
Right.
was, the
I'm
one that was
not
next to
talking
me
about that one.
was as big as anything down in Salt Lake.
What's that?
The one that was next to me, which is gone now,
Mhm.
he was as big as anything down in Salt Lake, and he worked round the clock. And there was welding and banging and smells and diesel
And
and,
there
so
was.
I'm well aware that there are things that should not happen.
Well, and that's a great case to bring up. None of that was processed under the home occupation, was it?
Uh-uh.
That was all under nuisance.
No, it was, the neighborhood went,
Conditional use,
yeah.
the
Well-
county had granted them a conditional use.
But for one truck, and all of a sudden there were 4 of their own,
But that business was.
and all sorts of
that's-
But
outside.
I'm saying it was prosecuted under nuisance because of this dust and noise, smoke and odor, right? Isn't that what,
Yeah, but
what brought
if
this?
it's the one I'm thinking of, that's really how the town came to be.
Yeah.
Was where, the township was organized to try and stop that.
Well, I don't know, well,
I mean, it was the clamor around that started.
I don't know, because we actually had some conditional uses that we, as a Daniel Township Planning Commission,
Mhm.
had done, and what we found was the county wouldn't back up any of the conditions we put on. And so it was really worthless, you know. If you give them a timeline to have their landscaping in a year, and in a year you go back and you say they haven't done anything, we need to pull the conditional use, and the county's going, no,
Yeah,
touching that. Well, I mean, what can the Township Planning Commission do?
No.
So it really
create
became.
a town.
So, and that, for that very reason is, I mean, conditional uses have their place. I'm reluctant to use them because they are hard to administer.
So what's our recommendation on C? I'm good with it. I think if it's a home occupation, it ought to take place within the home. And if it's not that, then it needs to be a conditional use. Or in the commercial zone.
So you're talking about does not involve the use, so you don't want to store in an outside building? You'd rather have it in the yard?
Well, it says or yard space. They can
It
put it
does
in the
not
yard even.
involve the use of the buildings, the ag buildings or the
So
yard
they can't leave it
space
in the yard.
for storage use.
They can't have activities outside of reasonable residential use.
See, so now my mixer doesn't get a come home.
Unless you plant
Put flowers in
flowers.
it.
Not unless you put it in the living room.
Or the painter's ladder doesn't get a come home.
Or
Use
the
it on
trailer.
truck, It sure does.
Or the plumber's threader.
Yeah, or the threader.
Leave it on the truck. Well, I'm just seeing what Gary's saying, is we
It
don't
is.
want people building accessory buildings to run a home occupation.
My vote would be if we're gonna be this restrictive, let's just outlaw them altogether. It's just residential period, no home occupations at all.
No,
I don't think that you can enforce it. I think that we'll end up with people back and forth fighting over this for a long time.
yeah,
Oh, we will have, when we get down there,
Guaranteed.
there are gonna be notices going out to,
but you've got to draw the line somewhere. You have to draw, that's the point of a code.
Well-
If we didn't want to have a code, then we wouldn't have a town.
It
We'd just
seems-
let
it
Heberson tell us
seems
what to do.
Like to me, home occupation, where it starts to really become troublesome is when you start talking more and more employees.
Mhm.
When you start talking about more and more parking.
Okay, there's,
To me, if you're running a home occupation, you're in those 2 areas, that's where it starts to cause trouble.
because a home occupation is defined as family. It should be the residing family. Now, I've got one going across the street from me that has a building built with an ag permit that is not an ag building, and now their illegal tenant is running a landscaping business out of that ag building. and their trash blows onto my property, the vehicles come and go morning and night, and I think
Is
we have
that,
to have some way to be able to say, look, if you're not smart enough to realize this is obnoxious, then we have to have code to say, don't do that to your neighbors.
is that a home occupation, Jay?
No, not at all.
It's just totally illegal, they're just doing it illegal?
There's not a thing over there that meets code.
I think that we're filled
The
with that.
solar panels meet code.
Oh, there you
We
go.
inspected it.
Solar panels, they're lovely. They're lovely.
So I think the issue is really, what I'm seeing happening is, because it's a cheap place to buy property and run a business, we're gonna end up being the
Mhm.
commercial zone.
Yep.
And
Or
we have a
industrial.
commercial zone, we have an industrial zone. I haven't seen a single business, well, yeah, we might, I guess we have the concrete forms that's in the commercial zone. But other than that, I don't think we have any businesses in the commercial zone.
We have Suburban Propane, we have.
Okay, so I'm wrong on that, but in general,
Davis.
most of our businesses in town are run out of the residential zone.
And
And
this
so,
is,
3000 South's becoming commercial, and if we want it to become commercial, then I say let's make it commercial and let people use the property. Not just let it benefit the ones that feel like they can do anything they want.
Well, then I think we should just move from an RA4 to an RA2.
I think
To
an
hell with
RA
it.
1/5, do a Heber City. Put 5 houses on an acre and be done with
And
it.
that's my point, is,
That's kind of where I'm at.
yeah, I agree with that.
We have some infrastructure problems with that.
yeah, you get
Yeah, but I
Oh,
figure
come on,
I
I
can
wanna
my
build a
neighbors
house
and-
out in my backyard.
You can if you spend $27 million to run the sewer down.
What sewer? Who's on a sewer?
That's what I'm
After
saying.
tapping the
That's
septic
exactly
tank
what
the
I'm
other
Put a
day.
small plant at the end.
Oh, and then convince the
Next
council
door
to
to
change
Eric.
the zoning.
Well, that's what I'm doing. Let's change the zoning. What the
The well
hell?
might not be
I'll
big
change
enough.
the zoning.
The
Sorry.
The well's not gonna be big enough.
The well's not gonna be big enough.
No, we'll just build another private water system.
Okay.
Me and my neighbors, we can get about, 400 houses. With that, we can build a sewer system and a water system.
State loves little private water systems. Pretty great.
Yeah, I know they do.
Oh, Francis is pretty good.
The revenue builder for
Kathy Jo, do you have a cowbell?
So do we need to add something to this then about,
No,
So this is the same thing that the council talked about. Is it too restrictive? Are we too restrictive right now? I mean, that was, John Blummer was talking about that. He says, this document is way too restrictive for what we want.
but a home occupation should be in the home. It should not spill out into everything else. You
That's why
know,
it's called home occupation.
yeah, that's why it's, I'm the only one on this board that I know of that has had a home occupation. And I had it before we became a town. And I did a business out of my home. You know, and I didn't have to jump through any of these hoops or do any of this stuff.
Diane, I had home occupation
Well,
down
yeah.
in Davis County,
Yeah,
but those were quarter-acre lots. And these kind of things made sense on quarter-acre lots, because you don't want a whole bunch of, painters' ladders and plumbing pipes and all that kind of stuff. Much tighter restrictions down there because it's much tighter property. But we in Daniels don't have the same exact circumstances as was on a quarter-acre lot down in Davis County.
unless your neighbor puts it
So-
next to your
So-
fence.
Tom,
We create
are you
a
saying that
5-acre
you
lot
want
that's
that
looking
here or
nice
you
and
don't
has
want
great
that here?
agriculture.
Do you
We
guys
don't
want
have to have
tighter
a
restrictions or
junkyard.
not?
That's right.
That's my question.
What?
Do you guys want tighter restrictions on a home occupation?
I think we need at least this.
Well,
I do too.
I think-
I think that even tighter than this if we're going to do it.
I think you need to at least enforce the same restrictions that you do in the commercial and industrial zones on those businesses in the residential zone.
But when we do this, we all need to realize that enforcement's gonna go through the roof, because there's so much that's non-compliant already.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a whole bunch more.
Well, and it's like Gary
Very
says,
quickly.
people want to come out here, they can buy 5 acres, they can put their business on it and not have to jump through any of the hoops in the commercial industrial area. And so we have to have some sort of protective code so that we don't end up being Heber City's junkyard.
So you're saying that you like number C?
I do.
Did you read it clear to the end?
The underlining and the crossing outs. What I'm reading is, the home occupation does not involve the use of any accessory buildings. ag buildings or yard space for storage or activities outside of reasonable residential use.
So is my cement mixer a reasonable residential use?
Yeah,
Wow.
unless you're running it under my window at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, if you're.
And that's where it's gonna
But
go,
that's a
Jay.
Guess what?
nuisance.
It never goes
You
anywhere
can do
but.
that, you can do that in the residential area, but you can't in the commercial area. In the commercial area, you have to have fences and you have to block off, you know, make a barrier between the commercial use and the residential use. In the commercial zone, you know, there's things you can't do at night.
What if
They're
we
just-
added a line to that stating reasonable residential use under the commercial, no?
Well, I'm looking at this reasonable, and to me, I'm picturing it if you were my neighbor. And if you were my neighbor and you have your masonry business, and you come home at night and you bring this mixer and you park it, as far as I'm concerned, that's your personal, that's what you do when you're not at home. Does that make sense? I mean, we don't want to turn it into one of those places where the yard Nazi comes and tells me that, you know, your kid can't have their tricycle on the front lawn. Well, that's reasonable. And to me, your cement mixer, because that's your cement mixer, is on it. Now, but now, if you've got 10 cement mixers and 10 guys picking it up, you know, and you've got this huge business, home occupation that you're running, to me, that's different. And to me, that word reasonable says, the man can have his cement mixer, this guy can have his ladder, this guy can have, but you don't put up a giant ag building and start running a major corporation out of my backyard. To me, that's the difference.
Reasonable, to me, is a word that is very individually interpreted. I think we need to come up with a different word than reasonable,
I like reasonable.
because her reasonable may not be my reasonable.
I can guarantee you, her reasonable and her husband's reasonable is not the same reasonable.
Well, what man and
Oh,
woman's
he's much
is.
more reasonable.
So-
I didn't say who it was, it just wasn't
Right.
Or
the
the
same.
neighbor who owns the mixer has a definition of reasonable.
Right.
It's not gonna be hers.
So here's, for example, in the commercial zone, the entire lot shall be kept free from refuse, debris, and waste material. All such refuse, garbage, debris, and waste materials shall be kept in approved containers and stored within a building or enclosed in a side obscuring fence or wall not less than 6 feet in height. Garbage containers shall not be located within the required front setback. No dust, noticeable odor, smoke, vibration, intermittent light, or noise shall be emitted which is discernible beyond the property boundary lines. We don't have any of those protections in the residential zone.
And why can't we put them in?
Well, I'm
for-
saying if we're going to loosen things up, we need to put those kinds of things in, and then you still got the same problem. Are we too restrictive in it? So I don't know.
I think it comes down to what you're trying to protect. But for me, I think we should be restrictive in the home area, for the simple fact that you're trying to protect the 5 acres, that it stays within the general plan, that we're trying to farm a little bit of this, and you might have an occupation over here, but it's not 10 employees, it's not 25 trucks, and if you can't do it in commercial, you surely shouldn't be able to do it in your home.
Exactly.
So run this thing through, and over the next 5 or 6 years, try to tweak it, try to refine it, and let the judge make a few decisions, hope not.
Well, we're doing that. I mean,
Well-
I was here when we originally put this out. And here we are revisiting it again and redoing it again. And in 2 years, we'll,
It's been 10.
Eric, could
yeah.
So Gary, are you
But
could we
you
saying,
have
know-
an attachment on this that says any home occupation must also meet the requirements required for a business in a commercial zone?
That's what I was trying to say earlier.
Is that possible to add that to it? To where those requirements would only apply to anybody running a home occupation, but it wouldn't apply to all the general
Running
business?
any business out of the residential
Yeah.
area.
Because I believe that a home occupation, they have to get a business license. And a home occupation is a mini commercial. So if we're gonna put these restrictions on the commercial properties and the commercial industry in our town, the home occupation should comply with that as well. Am I up in the night? Isn't that what he just said?
Well, the problem is you've got the grandfather so many.
You don't
Well,
have
yeah,
to,
you've
because
got
most
the
of them were
grandfather
there
thing.
illegally to start with.
Yeah, they already did on the code.
Now, let me put a twist on it for you.
Well, if you go
We've
back to
almost
when
come
the
a
county was
consensus.
running this,
Well, a lot of them have happened since the town started.
And the twist would be,
I had a complaint here, it's been two, maybe 3 weeks ago, of a riding arena being operated in the town as a commercial riding arena with impacts to traffic. People are parking their trailers and horse trailers out on the edge of the road, and it's an impact to traffic. Does that qualify under the same thing?
I would say yes.
It did in the county, they made them get licensed as separate
So are
arenas.
they charging money for people to come?
I don't know, it was just, I just.
That's kind of the difference, like with the party barn. They can have parties there whenever they want to, as long as they're not charging.
And
And
parking
there's not a
off
lot you
street,
can do.
right?
Yeah.
And so this one, it was, they were parking in the road,
Well, I would,
sounded like.
I would go with what it says in the home occupation, that the activities there would be no different than what would normally be in a residential. And a riding arena is not.
No, because I have a riding arena and I invite all my friends over.
That's
We're
right.
riding around and
That's
there's not enough place for people to park, so they
They
have to
park
park
on the street.
alongside the road.
That's
That
right.
cars could get by. But it's my friends, I'm having a party. That's not a business.
No.
So
And
have
there's
they
also-
impacted the traffic? Oh, they think it is. a
Well,
business.
they want to change this to say restrict.
Because it's not normally done in a residential.
Depends on whether they're parking on the road
but
or
we're
off the road.
really not residential. We are
Well, then they
We
want
are.
what
You
the
can't
old
have any
people
more-
call county.
Eric,
You
you can't
know?
have any Sunday afternoon dinners with your family anymore because they park alongside the road.
Exactly.
Well, the
that's
church
why-
people
That's
park
exactly-
alongside the road. I
Have
don't
to
like
move up to the
that.
back.
Well, that's why they say restrict traffic
Restricts
rather
my
than impact.
mobility.
Because then you've got.
I'm
some
anti-
So if I go
Oh,
too
my.
late and the parking lot's full, I should be able to just turn around and go home, right?
Yes.
You take that up with the bishop.
I would, but there's no place to park.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was there.
What's happening here is, at one time I worked for a company that was a quasi-public corporation. And it was neither state nor was it private company. But management in that company would do the little swing between the two, that when it suited their purposes, they would hold the requirements. Oh, no, we have to do this because this is the state requirement. And when it suited their purposes, oh, no, we're not going to do that because we're a private corporation. When the truth is, it was neither one. And it really shouldn't go back and forth like that. We need to decide, are we going to be residential and break it down into the quarter-acre lots? Are we going to be agricultural and not allow anything but farming out here? Are we going to be commercial and let anything go? You know, we've got to get together on the same page and not shift. When it suits our purposes, we're residential. When it suits our purposes, we're agricultural. When it suits our purposes, well, we'll do home business, but you've got to meet these requirements. Nobody else in the world has to meet. It just,
Okay, so we are zoned RA5, residential, agricultural, 5 acre. So we are both.
Right.
We can be both. And it's not that hard to just put the verbiage in here so we can take
Both.
care of the jerks. And I agree with Pam.
It is that hard.
It's-
Really big one, you know.
Because what Pam says, I mean, if they have a wedding across the street from me and their friends are parking on the street, that's different than if they're having, you know.
Daily weddings.
Yeah, they have an event center
That's
and
a
they're
bit-
always parking in my street. One is their personal use of a public right-of-way street, and the other is a business that they're making money and they're impacting my life.
So how does that apply to a riding arena?
Well, the whole complaint was that they were parking in the road, not that they were riding.
I think it comes down to whether you're charging or not.
Yeah, it comes down to
Yeah.
charging.
Well, parking in the road doesn't work either way.
No, you
So
shouldn't park in
alongside
the
the
road.
road,
Yeah, alongside the road.
Alongside the road, so
Parking
people can
alongside
get
the
by.
road.
Common sense. We no longer have common sense.
You know, I could write a ticket for all of those cars and we can see if we can make some money.
you'd have to have a parking.
It doesn't, there's no rule against parking on the road,
Yeah.
by the side of the road.
Yeah, you'd have to have a parking restriction first.
So I don't know about your riding arena, I agree with Kim, it's like, are they paying people to be there, or is it just a gathering, like Pam was saying?
It's the same thing, the minute you got a bunch of employees, you got a bunch more vehicles, it's looking more like a business. It's not what we're after in the zone RA5. But that, to me, this is a good place to start. Throw the whole thing at them. I mean, You can say, if we're gonna do it in commercial, we ought to be doing it in the home area. Well, let's just start building it from here and see where we go. And that's what we're trying to do, I realize that, but I haven't seen anything in here that bothers me too much.
Does that mean we got past C?
Okay.
Okay.
Now, to get
While
things
you all were
moving,
talking, I was looking for a cowbell sign, so I could.
Thank you.
Couldn't find one.
Go ahead,
I
Terry.
move that we let the council know that we agree with their changes for the ordinance and that we're at to hold a public hearing
Very
to
good,
review those with the public.
very good. I
I'll second that. Oh, okay,
I'll third it.
okay.
And so you did notice D right after your C,
Yep,
that they took the 1 ton out?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so you said Gary, would we agree with with
That
the
we let the
council?
council know that we agree with their changes
And hold a public hearing, and
and
then
that we should hold a public hearing.
after that, you said something.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Well, I need to finish.
and then Kim
Okay.
seconded.
And I can't remember saying anything else, so that
Okay, you
works.
did, but we'll admit that. Okay, and then who seconded it?
I did.
Kim,
I have a second. Okay, discussion on the motion.
No,
No, you don't agree, or no?
no discussion. We already discussed it.
we're already
Oh, I
discussing.
think you said.
What happens if the public comes out, you know, and says, wait a minute, this is why we built here, so we could have stuff?
And we will have it.
And we change it.
Then,
Or we say you really ought to look at your zoning ordinances before you buy property.
Now you have- now you have-
Yeah.
Yeah.
because like you said, some of them, okay, these ordinances are changing since we've been here, you know, we don't have a company anymore, but we have,
I still got my mixture.
yeah, that's what I mean, but.
Which truly is personal.
Exactly, but that's what I mean, so I just, am saying, what will happen if if the people, do you guys have to listen to what the people say? The people say, we want this,
And they
this is
may-
why we bought our
They may
property.
say we need to
address
change
it.
this back, and they may say we need to make it
More
broader,
restrictive.
and then you
Hopefully
can have
broader,
a
not more
good
restrictive.
heated
It
discussion
could
and
be
figure out what to do.
Okay, well, that's what I just wondered.
clamor.
So I
We'd
can,
like for them to come and tell us what they'd like. I
Yeah.
asked some of my neighbors when we got this, I said, what would you guys like? And gosh, not one of them could tell me a darn thing. So,
Yeah.
well then, we'll just do what we think's right.
Well, and unfortunately, we all are dealing in government, and there's two things government does. They hate change, and they hate the way things are.
I'm gonna write that down.
Hate rules, especially if they apply to me.
Okay, so
It's my way or the highway.
call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll give the council the good news.
What,
They did a good
we
job.
really weren't much help.
Yeah, that's it.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of April 20th, 2016 with the addition of Pam's name, which was inadvertently left off of them.
And there's one other change, wasn't that Mick Kohler? Not Mick, Kohler?
Yes,
What was it?
What's his name?
Mick,
Mick.
M-I-C?
No, Mitch.
G-K, I guess.
What do you think?
It's actually,
Melvin.
And
Melvin.
ag permit.
It's actually Melvin.
Which one do you want on there?
For that,
he goes by Mick.
is that him?
You want Melvin or Mick?
He pulled the permit under Melvin.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Melvin?
That monster barn.
Melvin Calder, was it?
No.
Okay, so I have a motion
Mick Kohler?
to approve with those changes. Is there a second?
That's, I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? We're all right, Kathy, Joe, you need a minute?
Unanimous? Oh,
No,
I'm unanimous,
yes.
I'm, yeah.
If you need a
It's
minute,
unanimous, I know it.
if you need a minute, we're waiting.
I'm good.
Okay, all right.
And four of us make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes will stand approved. I need to tell you guys that we have Robert Price, we've issued an addition building permit to his house.
Was that the one with the foundation's already there?
I don't know what's on site. It looks like they're gonna be tearing down part of the house and then adding on a wing.
So where are they?
So this address is 4572 South Highway 40.
Oh, no, it's not the one I was thinking.
The Bennett House got a certificate of occupancy. We talk about certificate of occupancy a lot here.
There's one.
There's one that the town has issued.
Very nice.
You know, they didn't adjourn yet.
Yes, they did.
She's gone. I want you guys just quickly look up over this. This is,
Oh,
and you'll be interested in that.
You know, she's adjourned the meeting, we can go home.
That's the memorandum of understanding on the gate on
On
What's
what?
your road?
What
What's your
now?
road?
Ranch Drive.
Ranch Drive.
I'm sorry, what was the first part? The
This is a
gate.
memorandum of
Oh, okay.
understanding for the gate and the road on Ranch Drive with the school district in the town.
All right.
Can we request a gate on the other end of Ranch Drive that we can keep locked?
I'll vote
Submit
for
an
that.
application.
So after all that, there's gonna be a gate going.
Sorry, Pam.
There is a gate.
Ranch Drive and gate access shall not be a site access for deliveries, buses, maintenance, employees, students, or the general public at any time except in an emergency.
We'll see how that works. They
Fire engine.
installed a nice gate now that's easy to open.
This is a letter that the county, if anybody's doing weed control on your property, if you keep track of the hours and submit that back to the county, the grant money will, they give us more money for herbicide that you can pick up at the county.
Okay.
Big growing.
The memorandum of
Or do they use it for actual weed control within the county?
No, I'll send that to you.
Anyway.
Well,
This-
yeah,
this-
but not
this
to that
helps.
level, so I don't use herbicides.
This helps the county get grants.
That gets grants, if anybody's been involved with the county, you can go down and you can get the free herbicide. That's where that funds come from to buy that herbicide.
Oh, okay.
And so you keep track of your hours and the ones that they furnished and also the ones that you purchased. And it shows a greater need for control and the more we control, the more we get. So that's a state fund. Legislature, I think it was $2 million this year in addition to the other funds that because they see what it's doing and how, they've added 13 species to the list this year of noxious weeds. And so
13?
right, and so it's substantial, they knew that when they passed the new noxious weed list, that it would be substantial to municipalities and the counties to do that, so they actually earmarked some funds for that.
Anything noteworthy on the list? Like maybe alfalfa or?
Plantain's not there, it almost made it on the county list. Mike Peterson has a will serve letter from Twin Creeks on his culinary water, so they've sent that up to us,
Which is interesting, because he had one before, but
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
She took it, it's done, we're
I
gone.
moved the
She
meeting.
said what will happen.
We stand adjourned?
Stand adjourned until
The next time we have a meeting.
It'll probably be a public